Nights changing, spiders seem to levitate in headlights, while deer hide dumb on the bushes, and three snakes hang from the branches of a small tree in front of a house. It was climbing out of a room. Jose looks back through the window, tangled up in the sheets, and she's smiling sweet, talking softly in her sleep.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and healthy, and I hope this finds you doing well. It's been a couple weeks since I did one of these. I've been busy recording the new Tombs record, which we completed yesterday. We finished tracking everything yesterday, and I just got a couple things to do. Then Bobby Torres is going to be mixing this thing, and then it'll be a done deal. But more importantly, just when you thought things couldn't get worse, the country is now on fire. In the middle of this global pandemic, some police officers who couldn't control themselves are now being brought to bear witness for the things they've done. And there's just insanity. Burning, looting, riots, protests, all this stuff going on, all in the middle of this health crisis that we're experiencing. And it's pretty crazy shit. And the mighty Chuck D, I'm going to paraphrase here, said something recently, and he said that I wish we could love black people as much as we love black culture. And that resonated with me because, black people are getting killed, cops are killing black people, and we are, white culture, if you will, in this country owes so much to the black experience: music, movies, fashion, all this sort of stuff. Yet black people themselves remain out on the margins, and I just think that's a incredible injustice. And I hate talking about this stuff, honestly, because in this climate with the quote unquote woke culture, there's always the risk of coming off as being disingenuous or being some bleeding heart, white savior. And I don't feel qualified to speak about these things. I can just, speak from the heart and express the way I feel. And, my life is filled with people from all cultures. And I think it's a real tragedy that stuff like this is going on. Man, what interesting times we live in. That's all I can say. The country is probably the most divided that it's been since the Civil War. I mean, think about that for a second. I think it's true when I say that. I mean, we were, the Civil War, we had warring factions killing each other. And from day to day, it seems like we're only a few steps away from something like that. I mean, I hope it doesn't come to this, but it's a very intense situation. I think this is going to go down in history as one of those notable points. We have a fool running the country, reality TV show star, failed businessman, media bully, a guy who's never succeeded at anything and has ridden into infamy on the coattails of his family's wealth and by putting his name on everything. And that's our leader right now. And it's when he was elected, I had the feeling that something horrible was going to happen. And of course, in the last year of hopefully the last 4 years of his reign of terror in this country, something awful is happening. I mean, it's been happening all along, but we have this health crisis, and now we have this racial tension and riots, and this guy just wants to sit in the White House and tweet like a 17-year-old girl, inciting violence instead of trying to take the composed, legitimate, strong leader role in this, which is what we all need, and speaking to people's best interests, our public best interest. instead of trying to further divide the country and created an us and them situation. I think I saw recently that Trump has been saying that all the looting is being done by liberal Democrats, and I don't know. It's fucking nonsense, man, and it's really upsetting to me. And that's more important than most things that are going on right now. But yeah, man, it's crazy. It's like even amidst, I've been super busy these last few weeks, just working my regular job, going to the studio, getting that thing done. I've been catching glimpses of this whole drama as it unfolds, watching all the videos and, seeing what people are posting on social media. And, yeah, it's heartbreaking, and I just think that, people combined with the frustrations that they have with respect to this health crisis and the fact that people of color seem to be hit harder statistically, and that could be a number of reasons because they're in the front lines, they're working at jobs that are deemed essential, vitamin D deficiencies. I mean, there's many reasons why that could be happening. And to make things worse, cops are murdering people of color, and it's tragedy. And yeah, that's I hope everyone is taking time to reflect on this stuff. And once again, I don't feel comfortable really talking about these types of topics because I've been very critical of the woke culture and everyone needing to have their own tragedy and maybe getting shine from other people's tragedies, so they can identify with the victim. And I'm very critical of that movement in our culture, and that's why I've sort of eschew, adding to that narrative. But in this case, I just feel like everyone should be expressing themselves, and there should be some kind of, expression of that feeling of sorrow, and sadness and outrage. One of the things that I've done to sort of take control of myself here, my own fate, is I actually went out and I got a COVID-19 test. And I tested negative. I did it about 2 weeks ago, right before we started, finishing up this recording. And it was done for free. It was done at a Rite Aid. And it's part of a nationwide study that's going on to establish a baseline. And actually, hold on a second here. Let me just look this up. Project baseline. I want to make sure I get this correct. Yeah, I guess right. So I urge everyone to go out there and get tested. It's the only way that we're going to get a hold of this whole thing that we're going through. You'll know for certain whether or not you have whether or not you actually have the virus. It won't give you the antibody test. That's another test that you have to have blood drawn for. But this is the test where it's all done hands off, like you do it yourself. And this is with the swab up the nose and all that sort of business. So, I mean, I'll take you guys through what happened. It's like, it's kind of a PSA, if you will. So you go to Project Baseline and you create an account and you put in your zip code and it tells you where the nearest location is. In my case, it was a Rite Aid in Edison, New Jersey. And I think that Project Baseline is partnered up with Rite Aid Pharmacy. And there might be other pharmacies associated with it too. But I just know that I went to a Rite Aid personally. You pick a date, pick a time slot. You show up 15 minutes early. In my case, because they asked me to show up 15 minutes early, I was actually there like 20 minutes early because I'm one of those 5-minute ahead of schedule type of people. You read the directions. There's a little instructional video that you can watch before you go, and it tells you basically what the whole thing entailed. So you have a little preview. You go to the drive-through. There's a guy in the drive-through window who is instructing you through your passenger side window. Like there's like a little monitor where he communicates with you, and he's watching you through the passenger side window from his window behind the drive-through. And there's like a box with like these buttons on it, and then they send over this capsule filled with the materials for the test. So, pew, this like air tube blows over this capsule. You hit a button, a window opens up. You pull out the this egg-shaped cylindrical sort of tube. It reeks of bleach. I mean, they douse this thing with bleach, man, and like much to my dismay, I actually stained my hoodie and pants. I had these like black like cargo pants on, and I had my Holy Mountain printing hoodie, and got a little bit of bleach on there because I put this thing in my lap. So heads up, if you take this test, make sure that you put this tube somewhere that's not on your person. Otherwise, you run the risk of getting bleach stains on your clothes. So the guy's like, all right, open up the container. You open the container. Inside the container is a kit that has a tube, a swab, and an alcohol like gauze pad that's in like a package. And then there's an envelope, a clear plastic envelope, baggie, with your paperwork in there that identifies who you are. And there's some sort of, I'm sure there's like a barcoding kind of type of thing. And the test tube itself has your name and your information on there, so they know who it is. You break the package for the swab. You open up the container. You put this swab into one nostril, and the guy on the other end, he's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. In that duration, you're supposed to be pushing the swab into your nostril for that period of time. And then you rotate it, you withdraw it, you do the same for the other nostril. And that's how you collect the sample. My right nostril, I couldn't even get it in for some reason. It was just this completely restricted passageway, which makes me wonder about my breathing. Left nostril slid right in, no problem. So I'm wondering about why one nostril is more restrictive than the other, and I'm thinking about I wonder how that affects my cardio. But anyway, you take the sample, you break one end of the swab off so that it can fit into the test tube. You put the sample end in. There's a slight quantity of fluid in there, which I'm assuming is some kind of reagent or whatever. You put the stopper on the test tube. You place it in the bag, which has like a foil adhesive strip on it. You close it up. Boom. You take the capsule. You put the empty capsule. You put it back in the box receptacle, and pew, it sucks it over back to the guy with the vacuum air tube that they have. The guy tells you to take the alcohol gauze and wipe off the controls on the box, receptacle box. You drive up a couple feet. There's another receptacle where you drop your bag with the sample in it, and then you drive away, and that's it. The whole thing took like less than 5 minutes. That's not counting waiting online. That was about, there was like 1 or 2 people ahead of me, so that was going to be 10 minutes. I was in and out in from getting online to driving away, it was about 15 minutes. So yeah, it's 15 minutes out of your day. They tell you that it takes between 2 to 5 days for your results to show up. 2 days later, I got my results. They emailed it to you. There's a link, takes you to your account. You log into your account. There's a PDF of your results. You can download the PDF, save it on your computer, put it on your phone in case people ask you about the results or whatever. You have it with you. And it's also saved on your account. Like your account is online now with them. You can, take as many tests as you want. I plan on getting tested again in 2 weeks. I'm going to continue to get tested. I think that it's important to do that. And at some point, when there's a higher level of comfort with the accuracy of the antibody tests, I'm going to get the antibody test done because I want to see what the results of that are. I feel that there is no possible way that I could not have been exposed to COVID-19. I lived in New York during the height of the infection, and New York State seems to be doing well. I watch Governor Cuomo Monday through Friday. Everything's low. The number of cases are coming down. The number of deaths are coming down, which is a big relief. But I was in New York City, man, in let's see, March and April. I moved to Jersey in May, which was on the other side of the curve. So on the ascent and the plateau and the peak, I was living in New York City. And a couple of episodes ago, we had Mike de Guzman on, who was talking about his experiences. It turned out that Mike was never actually diagnosed with COVID-19 when he was going through that, because it was still the point of the infection where they were afraid of the hospital system being overrun. So they told you to stay home and gut it out unless you were like on death's door, basically. So if you go back and listen to that episode, Mike talks about he had like 911 on speed dial and he couldn't breathe, and he just was like, any minute he felt like he was going to tap out and call for the ambulance, but he ended up making it without doing that, which I probably would have tapped out. I would have been like, hey, get me into the hospital, man. But then again, you're hearing about how when they put you on a respirator, it's all over, so maybe it's better just to hang in there at home. Who knows if Mike went to the hospital, what would have happened to him? But anyway, I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he's okay. And it turns out that he tested positive for the antibodies, confirming that he was, in fact, infected with COVID-19 during the month of March. Now, March was the beginning of the lockdown. All through January and February, I was training at the gym that Mike was the instructor at, well, part owner, one of the 3 owners of Raktan Muay Thai. So, Mike must have been infected a couple of weeks prior to when he actually developed symptoms. So at some point in February, there must have been other people that were exposed. And there's no possible way, man. We're all in one room, we're sweating, we're sparring together, we're hitting pads, we're in close quarters. I had to have been exposed during that period of time. Now, forget about the fact that I was taking the subway to and from work every day. And that, back then, no one was, exercising any kind of social distancing. Everyone's like right up on top of each other. People are sneezing without covering their mouths. There's like people breathing on you. Everyone's touching everyone. And, it's, I don't know how in any stretch of the imagination I could not have been exposed to this thing. So I'm interested. I don't have any in my system now. I'm not, I'm negative, but I'm really interested to see about the antibody test. So I don't know, man. I'm interested to see what kind of a world we emerge into after all of this. I go back and forth about how I feel about things. It's like things could be better. Maybe things are going to be, people are going to not, I feel like New York is going to become less populated. I know people have already been leaving. Hell, I already left. I moved out. I didn't move that far away. I'm still, technically I'm in the metropolitan area, but I don't live in the city anymore. And I think maybe offices are probably going to take the standpoint that, hey man, maybe we don't need everyone in here all the time on top of each other. And best case scenario, I've always liked going into an office, honestly. Working at home has been sort of a drag, I think. I tend to be a bit of a solipsist anyway. And I can cut myself off pretty easily, but then, I don't reach out to many people, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And isolation starts to set in, especially since you can't really go anywhere right now. So I'm like stuck at home, and it was good to be working on the record, which was like got me out of the house. I can't complain. I'm not living in the epicenter of this thing. There's trees. There's like a beautiful nature greenway literally right behind where I live, which I have to take full advantage of for running and just taking walks. Like I actually took a nice walk today through there. It's Sunday, and there's other people out there. Quiet town. You can walk down the street. Like there's a Dunkin' Donuts up the street for me in a Walgreens. And sometimes I walk up there if I want to get my fix of low quality coffee. If I'm going to go and buy some supplies at Walgreens, I'll walk up there and I won't run into anyone until I get to the store. I won't see a single soul walking on the sidewalk. So as opposed to New York, where it's like nonstop humanity all the time. So I feel fortunate, but I would be happy when things start opening up. I'm interested to see how that goes. Then like the other side of me thinks that maybe this is the beginning, like in a zombie film. Like one of my favorite parts of the zombie story is like those first few days, like when no one knows what's going on. I mean, we'll get into this later because I want to talk about this, but there's the Walking Dead offshoot, Fear the Walking Dead, where in the first season it was like started when things were normal, everyone's living their life, and then suddenly things just start sliding into fucking chaos. And I think there are times when I feel like this might be those days, especially now where there's like a potential race war, which is going to happen. And this might be the beginning of the end, or it might just be one of those things we get through. So the next few months are going to be very interesting, especially with the election coming up. But yeah, go out, get tested. It's not a big deal. It only takes, like I said, 5 minutes. It gives you peace of mind. It lets you know what the deal is. If you're infected, then you can, if you have COVID-19, you can isolate yourself, monitor your condition, figure out who you might have been in contact with and have them get tested. And it just makes everything better, I think. So, I highly recommend doing this. I urge everyone to go out there and get tested. So, as I mentioned, we finished up recording. It's been a very, very brutal couple of weeks. Just in the studio working during the day. The first couple of days of recording were weird. I mean, we did the drums over a month ago because the way things were supposed to lay out was Justin went in and recorded all the drums. Then we were supposed to have a couple of practices and then go on tour with Napalm Death for a whole U.S. tour. Come back, do laundry, get some sleep, head back into the studio to finish the rest of the album, and that was going to be that. That was like the schedule. But with the lockdown and quarantine, the tour got canceled, as well as every other tour, festival, even one-off local shows. All that stuff is down the tubes for the rest of the year. So that was gone. Studio was closed because at that time, it made sense for everything to be like locked down. We weren't going to be like, in the studio recording a fucking record in the middle of this thing. So we kept these dates, and we went ahead and went into the studio and did this. And we wore masks to get there. But when we were in the room, we had social distance, but I made a personal decision to not wear a mask, exercise as much personal, social distance as you can. But it was a decision, and I don't know if it was like the most responsible thing, but that's why I'm getting tested again in a couple weeks. I know that going into the session that I was negative, so there was that. Everyone else that was involved in this had been, isolating themselves and exercising, social distancing, and wearing masks and hand sanitizer and all this other stuff. So, I just wanted to be upfront about that, transparent, that, you know, I wasn't the most responsible person in these cases. I mean, I couldn't wear a mask while I was fucking playing guitar. I couldn't wear a mask while I was singing. And that's kind of how I wanted to go through this, you know, and do the best I can, but I also wanted to be able to experience this thing the way I wanted to experience it. The first few days it was weird being around everyone, man. It was like, I felt like we were doing something wrong, you know? I felt like we were like violating some rule just by being in a room together. And that was a really fucked up feeling. And as things open up and loosen and, you know, they start going through phase 1, 2, and 3 of the reopening or whatever, there's going to be this like weird anxiety. I think it's going to carry over with everybody, almost like a PTSD, where you're going to feel like uncomfortable and weird when you're around other people. And that's like a fucked up thing, man. And because I went through a smaller version of that just now. And yeah, anyway, we got over it. You know, just say what you will about me. I did what I did. So record's done. Tracking's done. Going to do a little bit of reamping on Wednesday. And then it's mixing time. And the other bummer is that the whole process of making a record, right around this time when everything's done, I start thinking about, man, this sounds like something. There's like a thing here that didn't exist just as an idea. It existed as an idea in our heads, and now it's been manifested into this thing. And I'm looking forward to it getting out there to everyone. I'm looking forward to getting out on the road and blazing up the countryside, playing shows, you know, doing that thing, which is like exactly why I feel like I've been put on this fucking planet, was to make music and go out and have adventures on the fucking road. But that's not going to happen. So that's a drag. That's like part of the narrative, I guess, during this whole thing is nothing is ever really that good. There's always, it's okay. Things are okay, but they're not good, you know? And I think that's the feeling I'm having about things right now. I think the record came out great. I'm really looking forward to getting this thing completely wrapped up. And I feel strong about the material. I feel like we were able to do something that it was the end result of years of attempts. You know, every other Tombs record was an attempt to reach some kind of goal. And I feel like only recently that I've been having any success in reaching the goal that I've had in my head of what the band should sound like. You know, Monarchy of Shadows was like getting close. You know, this record, Under Sullen Skies, that's the name of the new album, is as close, I think, as I've ever gotten to how I wanted the band to sound. You know, there's a lot of brutal stuff on there. There's a wide variety of different vocal things I've tried on this record. You know, there's I feel like the full range of influences are on display here. You know, there's some very atmospheric things. There's, you know, like kind of, you know, more epic sounding material. There's brutal stuff. There's fast songs. There's mid-tempo songs. You know, there's like a lot, the lyric stuff. I feel like the lyrics actually were the best lyrics I've written. So, aside, you know, I hope people appreciate it. I hope people are out there and I hope they dig it, you know. I mean, I'm not, you know, every record is brand new and like, I know I like it. That's all I can say. I don't know how people are going to react to it. So we'll see. But anyway, it's done. Another thing that is another disappointment is I will not be going up to the attended mastering session at West Side Studios with Alan Douches, my guru, my mastering guru, the great Alan Douches, mastering engineer extraordinaire, who's mastered most of everything, about 99.9% of everything I've ever played on, Alan has mastered. So part of the whole experience of making a record is the trip up to his studio. I mean, he's relocated from Tenafly, New Jersey, up to Windsor, New York, which is right on the Hudson. And I used to love, man. It's part the final movement of this thing is taking the Friday. So I always book it on a Friday so I can visit my parents afterwards. Driving up on a Friday morning, going to a studio out in Windsor, bringing up the mixes, in his like room where everything sounds the way it's supposed to sound, totally flat room, and just watching him do his thing and putting those final touches onto something that makes it a record, and that's like what I won't be experiencing that firsthand, and it's not just that, it's the conversations, the hangout, the stories. At this stage of the game, I've known Alan for over 20 years. And yeah, I think the first records I mastered him were way back in like maybe 97, 98. So it's been, a little bit over 20 years I've known this gentleman. And, we've developed a friendship, and I think that I'm going to miss being there this time around. And like I said, the whole experience, driving up there, the sessions always go really smoothly, wrapping it up, driving down to my parents, visiting them, getting takeout or going to a diner or something like that with my folks, spending the night, and then driving back to wherever afterwards. That's going to be the step that's missing this time around, and it sucks, But, hey, man, I'm just speaking freely here, and, things are not good. They're okay, but they're not good. They're not great. Everything has this like by the way associated with it. The weather's getting nice, but you can't really go anywhere. you can't touch anyone. You know what I mean? It's like, it's weird, So someday this will all be part of the past, I'm assuming. And I haven't really had much time I've been watching a lot of movies and TV shows and whatever, and reading a ton, which is cool. I guess not having the commute, not having the gym to go to, those hours are spent maybe taking in media and reading and stuff. And, those extra minutes and half-hour increments or hour increments of time that I would spend traveling, I guess I have those hours to spend on other things, so that's cool. So I read a bunch of books. I read The Reddening. I finished that Matheson book, Omega Man, which is grimly appropriate to the time I think that we're living in. I'm starting up a new book of short stories that are by Adam Neville, the guy who wrote The Reddening and also wrote that great novel, The Ritual, which was made into a Netflix TV show. Actually, a Netflix movie. Starting up a book of short stories of his. I recently got the complete series of the Terminator comics that came out on Dark Horse back in the 90s. And that's a trip, because I never read the full series, but I had a couple of issues here and there, and it's like set in the 90s, and it's cool. I really like Dark Horse Comics' treatment of those film properties like Alien, The Thing from Another World, Predator, and the Terminator. Those are always real fun. And anyway, it brings me to The Walking Dead, which I didn't read that last piece of the story, because issue 193 was the final issue, and I missed that entire run of comics. So I ended up getting the final compendium, volume 4, which just showed up the other day, and I'm probably going to be getting into that soon. And concurrent to that, I ended up watching the show because Yeah, the last couple of years have been this kind of a Huckleberry Finn adventure for me of not having, the most comfortable living accommodations, things like that. So now that I'm in my own space again, with all of my stuff around me and time to be divvied up as I please, I've been able to dive into that show. It was season 9 and 10 are the last two seasons, and after the mid-season break in season 9, I just fell off watching the show. So I binged the second half of season 9, and I just recently started watching season 10. And it's not really binging because I would come back from the studio like around 11:30 every night, and you're kind of like, you got to settle down. You can't just walk in the door and go right to sleep. So to wind down, I'd watch like one episode of that every night, and then fall asleep afterwards. So last night though, when I got in, I ended up binging a bunch of season 10. So anyway, the show is good, man. I know a lot of people talk shit about The Walking Dead, and I think that there was definitely a lull, but season 9 and 10 are fucking awesome. And I don't know, man. I don't know if it's cool to like it anymore or what, but I like it. I don't give a fuck, man. I'm not gonna be a hipster about it. I know even the comic books. I think the comics were some of the best comics out there, man. And I'm not gonna be a hipster about that either. I know some people that are deep in the comics world were like, oh, this is like the worst thing ever. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This is like really well written, like compelling. It's nothing new, but the stories are cool. They always had great villains, that kind of thing. So anyway, the TV show, I still like it. They got likable characters. I think the writing is pretty good. There's great, gore. I think the Whisperers are part of the comic book continuity. So they were bound to show up, and that's a good storyline. There's a lot of creepy stuff in there. But one of the things I really appreciate, which is like kind of going full circle back to where I started, is that aside from being a totally entertaining show, The Walking Dead also has been good at getting into like social stuff, like social commentary. There's like a lot of diversity in the cast and crew. I mean, not cast and crew, but the characters. I mean, I don't know who work. I know, Frank Darabont works on it and Greg Nicotero, but I don't know if the crew. That was like a misspeaking of my misstatements, I guess. But the cast is very diverse, man. You got all sorts of people. You got, gay people. You got straight, black, white, like Latin people, whatever, Asians. They're all involved. Middle Eastern guys, everyone. It's cool. And it's like the world would be. I mean, I think that if there was a zombie apocalypse, you wouldn't just run into white people. You'd run into all kinds of people, all different walks of life, all different, philosophies and ideas and that sort of thing. So that's cool. And also, one of my biggest pet peeves of the woke, horror experience is how fucking heavy-handed everything is. And I think that The Walking Dead really does a good job with having like strong female characters without beating you up over it. It's like Michonne. She's a leader, but she's also very complex. Like there's, she's a mother. She's like a leader. She's a fighter. Like that's been from number one. Like her development as a character has been pretty profound. From the beginning to where she's at now, and so they deal with women in a really cool way. Like there's a lot of strong female characters, but they're not like these, stereotypical like bitchy. They have to be like overly aggressive, and I think that's like a disservice to women as well. That you can't be a mother and be strong. You have to be like this total bitch character that like, hates men and all this kind of, whatever. So there's none of that. I think that's cool. There's gay characters that it's not like it's part of who they are. It's not what defines them. And I think that's a really strong thing to have in a fictional piece like this, where they're not defined by their sexuality. It's just part of who they are, you know, and I think it's cool. You know, there's even like, they even have a character that's ambiguous and gender ambiguous, you know, and I think that's cool. And they do it in this very natural way. And I like that. And I think that it's one of the shows out there that handle this kind of thing the best. So yeah, that's enough of Walking Dead. It's a great show. I dig it. I don't care if you guys like it or dislike it. I'm down with it. I back it. Looking forward to season 11. You know, maybe someday Rick will come back. Maybe Maggie will come back. That's cool. You know, and yeah. So, and that's it. That's all I got. Like I said, hanging in there. You know, I'm going to try to get some more guests on this thing that just talk shit about stuff and see where we go. But yeah, everyone be well. And make sure you check out Metal Matters every week. Comes out every Tuesday. It's the Gimme Radio official heavy metal extreme music podcast. It comes out every week. Got really cool stuff on there. And starting in June, we're going to be producing more Necromaniacs episodes that are going to be launched in July. So June is going to be good for that. We're going to be, recording and scheduling episodes for July. So any horror fans out there, be advised. There's going to be more horror content coming out there at you. So anyway, be well. Take care all.